Rambam. We are in the 10th book of purity, and we're discussing the impurities of Zav, Zava, Nida, and Yoledis, which means a an unnatural emission, male, female, of a woman that gives birth and a woman who's in the menstrual cycle who, and all of them are impure, spiritually impure. And we're learning about the laws on how they impart impurity to other objects.
Chapter 10.
We are, yes, chapter 10. Okay. So an unlearned person, even though he is Jewish and observant of Torah and mitzvahs, is assumed to be impure, and his clothes are considered to be a midrash if they come in contact with pure substance. Right? These laws are very difficult. I'm having a challenge with them. Yeah. And look, they don't apply today. Like none of these laws apply today, but it's Torah. And, Mashiach comes, they apply. I mean, things will be different, Mashiach, but yeah, it's still knowledge that we need to have, right? So, because it's so easy to come in contact with something impure. Now, just as a reminder, purity is only when you are obliged to do things in a state of purity. Like when the holidays come and you go to Jerusalem and you bring your second tithes, or if you're a Kohen, a priest, and you eat the truma that has been given, that has to be done in a state of holiness. But, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, no. Your regular routine and things, no.
This is only in regard to the temple. Only in regard to the temple.
This is in regards to the temple, exactly. So the unlearned person, because it's so easy to come in contact, because you could have sat on a couch that a person who was a Zav, Zava, a Nida, or a Yaled, this one of these four categories that we're talking about, right? They could have sat on it and made the couch impure. Now, again, it's not a problem. You just need to know that you're impure. And it just means you have to go to the mikveh, right? It might be the clothes also need to, but fine. And that's okay. It's a woman, by the way, she becomes actually impure because she has a menstrual cycle or she gives birth, right? It's a little blood. And so it's not a bad thing. It's a reality of this world, that this world is full of klipa, and therefore not everything is, it produces holiness.
Every day.
No, if that's only if you needed that to go that day.
Well, if you don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, fine. Yeah, you could do that. But the point, again, what we just learned over here is the unlearned person is considered to be impure. Therefore, if that unlearned person is going to go to Jerusalem now, then they have to go to the mikveh. They don't have to go, right? Because Jewish law is about what you're obliged. So you don't have to go if you're not doing anything in a state that needs to be done in a state of purity. Okay. If his clothes touch foods or liquids, they are impure because those foods might be impure, right? If his clothes touch foods, liquids are impure. If he touches earthenware container from the inside, he imparts impurity to it. Truma should be burnt if such a person touches it, even though his impurity is in a doubtful status. Because truma must be in a state of purity. It needs to be pure. The truma we're talking about, the food, right? The word of such persons is not accepted regarding such state of pure articles because they are not knowledgeable regarding the intricacies of the laws of purity and impurity. So we can't trust them. Not because they're lawyers, because they don't know. We continue to operate under the presumption that the person's words is not accepted until he resolves to accept the restrictions rather of a chaver. When, if you take upon yourself, you're going to be very strict. What is meant by the restrictions of chaver that he must resolve to accept? What does that mean? That he be careful with regard to sources. Mendel's going to be here in a few minutes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. In the meantime, Rambam. So what does it mean? So he has to be regard with sources of impurity. He has to be careful not to contract impurity from them. That he be careful with regard to pure articles and not to impart impurity to them. That he be careful with regard to washing hands and maintaining their purity. That he not take moist foods from an unlearned person. Did not accept his hospitality, nor to offer hospitality to him while he's unclean. Unlearned rather, person is wearing his own garments because they might be impure, right?
Germaphobe.
No, it's not germaphobe.
I know.
It's a spiritual phobe.
Okay. Spiritual phobe. Every minute of every day.
Every second. That's a state.
Every moment, continuously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you need therapy.
You?
You need therapy. I need to understand
Tell
first what's that.
that to my doctor.
Who's the doctor?
Which one?
Oh boy.
Okay, halacha number 2, right? Halacha number 2. We're on, let me see the booklet. Okay, yeah, we're on for Monday, first chapter, halacha number 2. When a person seeks to accept upon himself the practice of a chaver, except one, he's not accepting. Now he's got to be full acceptance. If we see he carries out the practice privately on his own, in his own home, we accept him and then teach him the concepts of impurity and purity. If we do not see him conducting himself in this manner privately at home, we teach him and then we accept him. We don't accept him right away. He has to be taught. Okay. First, a person is accepted with regard to maintaining the purity of hands. Afterwards, he accepted with regard to dealing with pure objects. If he said, I only accept upon myself the purity of hands, he's accepted for that, right? If he sought to accept the restrictions regarding pure objects, but not those that apply to the purity of hands, we do not accept him, even for pure objects. So, because pure hands are more difficult. So if you're going to do the more difficult, then the easier one, right? To keep your hands always pure, that they're not touching a place of impurity, right? Very difficult. No, that not necessarily helps. No, it's impurity. It's a spiritual thing. Because if he touched a cup that belonged to an unlearned person, a goblet, right, that belonged to an unlearned person, that goblet is impure. He becomes impure, right? So it means he has to be so aware of what he's doing with his hands.
Also, who serves you the cup?
Right?
Go serve yourself.
When he is accepted, we are cautious with regard to the conduct of his conduct for 30 days until he learns the intricacies of the laws and is used to dealing with pure objects. Once 30 days have passed, since he accepted the customs of the chaver, his clothes are considered as pure, and all of his food and liquid are considered as pure. His word is accepted with regard to pure objects, like all other chaverim, even though he is not a Torah scholar. So that's the uniqueness over here. Torah scholar is accepted because he's a Torah scholar, and he knows, right? But if not, so that's the issue over here.
30 days it takes him to learn?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Huh?
That's pretty fast. Not hard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Torah scholars, number 3, are considered to be chaverim. Do you know what chaverim means, by the way? Means friends. Chaver means friend. Chaverim is plural of friends. So this is the inner circle friend. This the inner circle. Their word is accepted regarding pure articles. They do not have to undertake a formal acceptance of the practices of Chaverim, right? Because they're Torah scholars. Nevertheless, after the destruction of the temple, the Kohanim adopted an additional measure of stringency among themselves, and they would not give pure objects to anyone, even Torah scholars, until they formally accepted the practice of Chaverim. I don't know what that means, quite frank. Because after the Holy Temple was destroyed, so you didn't bring offerings to be pure. You didn't bring your second tithes, right? That you need to be pure, or truma. So I'm not clear.
Anything in synagogue?
Huh?
Anything, you have to be pure in synagogue?
No.
Okay.
No.
Even the Torah blessings? Appreciate blessings?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there is a concept that, Chassidim, when they go to the mikvah, but that's not an obligation. These are laws about obligation, right? If you're not pure and you eat truma, you get cut off from God, right? You come and bring a sacrifice to the holy temple and you're not pure, you get early death. It's pretty severe. Today we don't have those laws, right?
But we will.
An elder is a member of the Talmudic Academy, does not need to formally accept these practices, for he already accepted them at the time he became a member of the Academy. When a person seeks to accept the practices of a chaver, he must formalize this acceptance in the presence of 3 chaverim. His sons and the members of the household need not formalize this acceptance in the presence of 3 chaverim, because he will teach them and train them in the ways of purity, right? The wife of a chaver, his sons and members of the household, and his servants are considered like a chaver. If a chaver dies, his wife and his sons and members of the household are considered to be chaverim until their conduct arouses suspicion, right? Because remember, if the husband is being very careful and his wife and kids are not, that means he's not going to be pure, right? Because they're going to touch a couch and he's going to sit on that. They're going to be impure. She's going to touch the couch. The kid's going to touch the couch. It's going to become impure. He's going to sit on it and becomes impure. Whatever the law, right?
You have to train them.
So he has to train them.
If he's not around.
Well, if he passes away, even though he was the catalyst of this, but he trained them, so we assume that they are being careful until we arouse, unless it's a suspicion otherwise. Okay. When a widow of an unlearned person or a daughter of one who marries a chaver or a servant of such a person is sold to a chaver, the woman or the servant must accept the practice of the chaver as at the outset. So in these instances, you have to accept, right? Right? This woman or servant, they must accept. When, by contrast, widow of a chaver or his daughter marries an unlearned person, or his servant is sold to an unlearned person, there's no need for them to accept practices of a chaver as at the outset. Why? Because they've been living that way the whole time. The fact now her husband passed away, who was a scholar, and she remarried, right? Because her husband passed away. Someone was unlearned. So she's not going to unlearn her ways, right? Unless we have suspicion otherwise, but otherwise, so she doesn't need to accept it on the outset because she's been living that way already for a long time.
She teaches the unlearned person, her husband.
I guess we have to assume that. Yeah, that's what I'm. Good question. Yeah. When an unlearned person accepts the practices of a chaver, but had pure articles that remain from the time that he was unlearned, although he says, I know with certain these do not contract impurity when others were involved with them, they are forbidden as their status initially. Right? So he became a chaver, but he had things, right? He owned this silver goblet before, but he's saying, no, I know its status is what it was. What's its status? He changed status, but the object didn't change, right? We're making a distinction now, fine distinction. He changed status, but not the object. The object has the same status. So therefore, we do not consider it, acceptable. If the person, if he was personally involved with these pure articles before the status change, the articles are permitted to him, but they're forbidden to all others. Ah, interesting. For him now, because he was involved with these pure articles. So like, this is my silver goblet that I only took to Jerusalem when I went to for the holidays and I took my second tithes, right? So that, okay. Because it's one thing that he says, this is what I did. I put this away for a whole year. When I would go that one time or three times to Jerusalem, whatever it was, right? I use this one goblet. So for him, that's okay, but not for others, right? A chaver may be asked about the state of the pure articles, and he may rule in his own favor. They are permitted. We do not harbor suspicion about him in this context because he's a chaver. So a chaver means you're trustworthy. You're trustworthy. So he can even rule on his own object. Usually, you're not ruling because everybody's close to themselves and it wants benefit for themselves. So you're naturally going to have an eye to benefit yourself, and you may not, might not be so careful about what you're saying about your own article, but you say, no, that's okay. We trust. Number 8. When a chaver becomes a tax collector, a collector of customs duty or the like, he is stripped of his status as a chaver. If he abandons his evil deeds, he is considered like as everyone other person. He must accept the practice of a chaver, as on the outset. So, because a tax collector back then was a person who was self-oriented and was cruel and was taking money from people for his own benefit, right?
Still today.
No, today they're working because there they were able to. There it was an open thing that they were taking money for themselves. That's how they made their livelihood. They gave to the king some, right? If they were working totally for the king, that's a different story. But working for kind of like working for the government, but in the end they took their share. The fact that they took their share, right, and that was part of the job, right? That was okay back then, right? But it's not okay from a Jewish perspective. But it was, okay, that's the way the world ran. Okay. One unlearned person accepted the practices of a chaver and then became suspect with regard to the particular matter. He is suspect only with regard to that particular matter. Nevertheless, one who became suspect with regard to a severe matter is suspect with regard to a slighter matter. If he becomes a suspect of a slight matter, he is not considered suspect for a more severe matter. Okay, so once he becomes a chaver, you don't lose it automatically. It depends. You might be only suspect for certain things because it's very detailed and very, Number 10. When a chaver becomes suspect with regard to permissiveness in connection with ritual pure objects, he sold ritually impure food with the presumption that they were pure. He is no longer considered trustworthy until it becomes known that he's repented completely. So this is different. Before, suspect, he didn't, here we're talking about, he sold ritually impure food with the presumption that it was pure.
Okay.
Right. No. You're not trustworthy anymore. Right. That's like a bottom line.
Ignorance is no excuse.
Final halacha for today. When a person is suspect with regard to the violation of the laws regarding the sabbatical year or with regard to selling truma as ordinary produce, he is considered to be suspect with regard to violating the restrictions concerning ritual purity, because that's even more strict. Right. You sold truma as ordinary produce. That means you gave to a regular Jew to eat truma. That person. That's a terrible thing, right? So that's a very severe thing. So now you're suspect for ritual impurity. For a person who is suspect with regard to the scriptural prohibition is considered suspect for rabbinic safeguards. The impure foods impart impurity to other entities only by virtue of the rabbinic decree, as we explain. As will be explained. So a lot of the spiritual impurity is rabbinic. And a person is not going to be as careful because there's no early death, right? There's no severe consequence as in biblical law. So if that you're not careful, then for sure, rabbinic law, you're not going to be careful. Any person who is suspect with regard to a particular matter is nevertheless permitted to deliver testimony regarding such a matter with regard to others and to serve as a judge with regard to others. The rationale is that we operate on the assumption that the person will not transgress so that others will benefit. In other words, I'll sin for myself to benefit, but I'm not going to sin for someone else to benefit. So I'm not going to be a judge. Right. I'm not going to be a judge and rule in your favor if I get no benefit from it. If I got benefit from it, so then I might be suspect, right? But so we don't suspect a person for that. Wow. Amazing. Fascinating. All right, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good day.
Too.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.